I'm Veronica, 32, and I once had the perfect relationship with my parents. We were inseparable, the kind of family others envied. But trust can shatter in an instant when lies take root. During my senior year of high school, I was kicked out of my home because of a vicious rumor I had nothing to do with. My own parents, who promised to always believe in me, chose gossip over their daughter. Before I share how my own family turned against me without proof, let me know where you're watching from, and hit subscribe to join others who found healing through these difficult stories. Growing up in suburban Pennsylvania, I lived what most would consider a charmed life. Our two-story colonial house with the white picket fence sat in an upscale neighborhood where neighbors knew each other by name and regularly gathered for summer barbecues and holiday parties. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect American family that everyone wanted to be. My father, James, built his reputation as one of the most successful attorneys in our county. He specialized in corporate law and worked for a prestigious firm in Philadelphia, commuting an hour each way because he insisted we live in a community with excellent schools and safe streets. His perfectionism showed in everything from his precisely knotted ties to the immaculate way he maintained our yard. Dad carried himself with the confidence of someone who rarely lost an argument, whether in the courtroom or at our dinner table. My mother, Diana, balanced her career as an elementary school teacher with maintaining our household. Students adored her creative lessons and warm personality. Parents requested her class, specifically knowing their children would thrive under her guidance. At home, she was equally dedicated, somehow managing to prepare homemade meals most nights despite her busy schedule. Mom documented our lives meticulously in leather-bound photo albums that lined our family room shelves, each labeled by year in her perfect handwriting. Together, they created an image of success and happiness that our community admired. They served on boards, volunteered at charity events, and hosted gatherings where guests would comment on how fortunate I was to have such wonderful parents. And I believed it too. Our family traditions reinforced this sense of closeness. Sunday dinners were sacred, with phones banned and conversation encouraged. We took annual summer vacations to different national parks where Dad would plan educational hiking routes and Mom would pack elaborate picnics. During winter breaks, we would spend a week at my grandparents' lake house playing board games and making memories that filled those photo albums. My younger brother Thomas was 5 years behind me in school. With his sandy brown hair and freckles that matched mine, people always knew we were siblings. Thomas looked up to me with undisguised admiration. I helped him with homework, attended his baseball games, and listened to his endless stories about video games and science experiments. Having him as my shadow sometimes annoyed me, but mostly I loved being his role model. My relationship with my parents felt special. Dad taught me chess and debating skills, beaming with pride when I made the school debate team. Mom and I shared a love of classic literature, often discussing books late into the evening. They encouraged me to voice my opinions at dinner, treating my teenage perspectives with surprising respect. I truly believed I could tell them anything. Our family values were clear and consistent. Honesty came first. We were reminded of this whenever we were tempted to tell even small lies. Education was non-negotiable, with achievements celebrated and struggles met with additional support rather than criticism. Reputation mattered enormously, particularly to my father, who frequently reminded us that our behavior reflected on the entire family. The pressure to maintain this perfect image intensified as I entered high school. My parents expected straight A's, meaningful extracurricular activities, and behavior beyond reproach. When I brought home my first B+ in advanced chemistry, my father spent an hour reviewing where I had gone wrong and arranged for a tutor despite my protests. When I wanted to quit piano after 8 years to focus on debate team, my mother expressed such disappointment that I continued lessons for another year before finally standing my ground. While I mostly thrived under their expectations, maintaining the balance between pleasing them and finding my own identity became increasingly challenging. I watched other teenagers experiment with rebellion while I carefully colored within the lines my parents had drawn. The few times I pushed boundaries, like coming home 15 minutes past curfew or questioning our church attendance, their disappointment felt crushing. Looking back, I should have recognized the warning signs. The love and approval I received were tied to my accomplishments and behavior. The family image always took precedence over individual expression. But teenagers rarely see the conditional nature of relationships until those conditions are tested. I never imagined that their love was conditional on my perfect image, that one day I would fail their impossible standards through no fault of my own and discover just how quickly unconditional love can reveal its limitations. Westlake High School operated on an unspoken but rigid social hierarchy that everyone instinctively understood. Unlike the simplified version shown in movies, our social structure was nuanced and complex, with multiple circles of influence that occasionally overlapped, but mostly remained distinct. I occupied a comfortable middle space in this ecosystem. As a member of student council debate team and the school newspaper, I had earned respect from teachers and students alike. People knew my name, included me in conversations, and valued my opinions. But I wasn't part of the elite social circle that controlled the school's social currency, and honestly, I never particularly wanted to be. That top tier was undeniably ruled by Amanda Patterson. With her glossy brown hair, designer clothes, and seemingly unlimited budget for whatever teenagers considered cool that week, Amanda had cultivated the perfect blend of admiration and fear. Her father owned a chain of car dealerships whose commercials played constantly on local television, giving her a pseudo-celebrity status. She commanded attention the moment she walked into a room surrounded by her carefully selected inner circle, who amplified her influence. I had known Amanda since middle school, and while we were cordial, there was always an undercurrent of competition between us. We were both academically strong, but where I genuinely enjoyed learning, Amanda seemed more focused on the status good grades provided. We had served together on student council since freshman year, typically finding ourselves on opposite sides of any debate. My closest friend couldn't have been more different from Amanda. Sarah Johnson lived in the small apartment complex on the edge of our school district. Her single mother worked 2 jobs, leaving Sarah responsible for her younger siblings most afternoons. Despite these challenges, Sarah maintained solid grades and participated in art club when her family responsibilities allowed. She had a talent for seeing through people's facades and a loyalty that I would come to value more than I could have imagined. The trouble began during our senior year when Mr. Harrington, our principal, announced a new leadership program sponsored by several prestigious universities. Only 2 students from our school would be selected to participate in a summer workshop in Washington, D.C., with guaranteed internship opportunities and a significant scholarship component. The entire senior class buzzed with excitement as we submitted our applications. When the announcement came that I had been selected along with David Chen from the science team, I was ecstatic. This was exactly the kind of opportunity my parents had always encouraged me to pursue, one that would strengthen my college applications and open doors. My celebration was short-lived, however, when I noticed Amanda staring at me from across the cafeteria, her expression making it clear she had expected one of those spots to be hers. That afternoon, I discovered my locker had been jammed shut. The next day, I overheard snippets of conversation that abruptly stopped when I approached. Small incidents easily dismissed individually, but forming a pattern I couldn't ignore. Sarah noticed too. Amanda's not subtle when she's upset. She warned me during study hall. Just watch your back, okay? This leadership thing really got to her. I shrugged off her concern. What can she really do? We're seniors, not children. Besides, everyone knows this selection was based on merit. If only problems in high school were solved by logic and fairness. The situation escalated when Amanda's boyfriend, Jake Turner, suddenly began appearing wherever I went. Jake was our school's star quarterback, with college scouts already making offers. His family's wealth matched Amanda's, and they had been the school's power couple since sophomore year. I had rarely interacted with him before, so his sudden interest was confusing. It started with casual comments in the hallway, then offers to carry my books, and finally direct compliments that made me increasingly uncomfortable. During a student council meeting to plan the winter formal, he volunteered to work on the decorations committee I was chairing, something completely out of character for him. After the meeting, he followed me to the parking lot, suggesting we discuss ideas over coffee. His intention was unmistakable, especially when he leaned against my car, blocking my entry. "Jake, I need to get home," I said firmly. "And you should probably call Amanda instead of spending time with me." "Amanda doesn't need to know everything." He replied with a smile that might have charmed other girls but only raised red flags for me. That's not how I operate, I told him, maintaining eye contact to ensure my message was clear. I respect relationships and I'm not interested. Please move so I can leave. He eventually stepped aside, but not before Amanda drove past, slowing down just enough to witness our interaction. The look she gave me chilled me to the bone. From her perspective, it must have appeared that her boyfriend and I were having an intimate conversation beside my car. The next day, Sarah pulled me into an empty classroom between periods, her expression grave. "There's talk going around," she whispered. "Amanda's telling people you've been pursuing Jake for weeks, sending him messages trying to break them up." "That's ridiculous," I exclaimed. "He's been following me around. I've been avoiding him." Sarah squeezed my arm. "I know that, but that's not the story everyone's hearing. And Veronica, there's more. She's implying you two were caught doing something together after school yesterday." I felt sick. We talked for maybe 2 minutes and I shut him down completely. "Just be careful," Sarah warned. "Amanda doesn't play fair when she feels threatened." I walked away, still naively believing that truth would prevail, that my reputation for honesty would protect me from baseless rumors. I didn't realize that in high school, perception creates its own reality, and once a story takes hold, facts become almost irrelevant. The rumor that would eventually destroy my home life began as a masterfully crafted piece of character assassination. Amanda didn't simply spread a basic lie, she created a complex narrative that wove together multiple threads of misinformation, making it difficult to disprove and easy for others to believe. It started small, with whispers that I had been acting differently lately, seeming stressed and secretive. Amanda told her friends she was worried about me, an effective tactic that disguised her malice as concern. Then came suggestions that I had been spotted in places I shouldn't be with people my parents wouldn't approve of. The core accusation emerged about 2 weeks after Jake's unwanted advances. According to the story circulating through school, I had allegedly stolen $5,000 from the fundraiser for children's cancer research that our student council had organized the previous month. As treasurer of the event, I had indeed handled the money counting and documenting it before our faculty advisor deposited it. The records clearly showed every penny accounted for, but the rumor claimed I had skimmed money before the official count. This accusation was then connected to claims that I had used the stolen funds to purchase drugs, explaining my supposedly erratic behavior. And finally, the rumor culminated with the allegation that Jake had discovered my drug problem, and in trying to help me had been seduced into a compromising situation in the empty science lab after school. It was a perfect storm of scandal, theft, drugs, and sexual impropriety, all packaged in a narrative that painted Jake as a would-be hero and me as a falling star. The story was designed to explain why a previously upstanding student might suddenly engage in such behavior, making it more believable than a random accusation. What made the rumor particularly devastating was the evidence created to support it. Someone, presumably Amanda or one of her friends, had digitally altered photographs from school events to make it appear I was under the influence. In one particularly damaging image, a normal picture of me looking tired during finals week was edited to make my pupils appear dilated and my expression dazed. Even more damaging were the fake text messages. Screenshots circulated showing alleged conversations between Jake and me with my texts, suggesting meetings for drug exchanges and making inappropriate advances. The messages contained details about my life and writing style that made them appear authentic to those who didn't know me well. The first sign something was wrong came when my chemistry teacher, Mrs. Benson, asked me to stay after class. She had always been one of my biggest advocates, writing my recommendation letter for the leadership program. "Veronica, is everything all right at home?" she asked, studying my face with concern. "Yes, everything's fine," I answered, confused by the question. "You know you can talk to me if you're having problems," she continued. "Sometimes bright students like yourself feel pressured to experiment or find escape valves." I left her classroom bewildered, only to encounter similar conversations with other teachers throughout the week. My debate coach suggested I take a break from our upcoming tournament. My guidance counselor called me in to discuss healthy coping mechanisms for stress. The student reaction was less subtle. People who had sat with me at lunch for years suddenly found reasons to eat elsewhere. Conversations stopped when I approached. Someone scrawled "thief" on my locker in erasable marker gone before administrators could see it, but visible long enough to send its message. Sarah remained steadfast beside me despite pressure from others to distance herself. "They're saying anyone who stays friends with you will get dragged down too," she told me during one lunch period where we sat alone. "Amanda told Jessica that I must be involved in whatever you're doing." "But what am I supposedly doing?" I asked, frustration mounting. "Everyone's acting strange, but nobody will tell me why." Sarah took a deep breath and finally laid out the entire rumor that had been circulating. As she detailed each accusation, my stomach knotted tighter until I felt physically ill. "But none of that is true," I protested. "The fundraiser money was all accounted for. Mrs. Wilson was there when we counted it, and I've never done drugs in my life. As for Jake, I've been avoiding him completely." "I know," Sarah said quietly. "But they have pictures, Veronica, and text messages." "What pictures? What messages? They must be fake." The next day, I confronted Amanda directly in the restroom between classes, finding her applying lipstick with two friends flanking her. "I know what you're doing," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "These rumors about me need to stop." Amanda turned slowly, her expression a perfect mask of innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm actually concerned about you, Veronica. We all are. The fundraiser money was all accounted for. I never stole anything, never bought drugs, and never did anything with Jake. You know that." Her friends exchanged glances as Amanda sighed dramatically. "It's sad to see you denying it. The first step to getting help is admitting you have a problem." I left shaking with anger and frustration. I tried approaching the school administration, but without specific evidence of who was spreading the rumors, they could only promise to look into it. Meanwhile, the damage continued to spread as parents began calling each other concern about the drug problem at Westlake High growing with each conversation. I tried desperately to prove my innocence. I obtained a copy of the fundraiser records showing all money accounted for. I asked teachers who knew me well to vouch for my character. I even suggested a drug test to the principal to prove that part of the rumor false. But fighting the rumor only seemed to give it more life, and for every person who might have doubted, there were others who found the scandalous story too delicious not to believe. The worst moment came when Sarah showed me a printed copy of the fake texts that were circulating messages I had supposedly sent to Jake. Seeing words I never wrote attributed to me plans I never made, feelings I never expressed, was violating in a way I hadn't anticipated. Someone had effectively stolen my identity to create this fictional, corrupted version of Veronica that was now replacing the real me in everyone's perception. I didn't realize then that the rumor had reached beyond the boundaries of school, traveling through parent networks and community gossip, until it finally arrived at my own front door. But when I arrived home that Friday afternoon, to find both my parents' cars in the driveway hours before they normally returned from work, I knew something was terribly wrong. I remember every detail of that afternoon with painful clarity. The unusual silence when I entered our typically bustling home. The formal way my parents sat in the living room rather than going about their normal routines. The folder on the coffee table between them, closed but ominous. "Veronica, we need to talk," my father said, using his courtroom voice rather than his dad voice. "Sit down." I dropped my backpack by the door and took a seat in the armchair across from them, immediately noticing how they presented a united front on the sofa. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed, and she clutched a tissue in her hand. My father's expression was stone cold, his jaw clenched in the way it got when he was controlling anger. "We received some disturbing calls today," he began. "Mrs. Patterson contacted your mother with concerns about your behavior at school. Then Principal Weber called me directly." My heart sank as I realized the rumors had reached them. "Dad, whatever you heard, it's not true. Amanda Patterson has been spreading lies about me because she's jealous about the leadership program." "So you're denying that you've been involved with drugs?" he asked sharply. "Yes, absolutely. I've never touched drugs in my life. You know me better than that." My mother spoke up, her voice wavering. "What about the money from the fundraiser, Veronica? They're saying there's money missing." "That's completely false," I insisted. "Every dollar was accounted for. Mrs. Wilson was there for the entire count. The records are clear. And Jake Turner? My father's voice had an edge I'd never heard directed at me before. We heard you've been having inappropriate relations with him at school. What? No. He's been pursuing me and I've rejected him completely. He's Amanda's boyfriend. I would never do that. With each denial, I could see their expressions hardening rather than softening. They weren't asking questions to hear my side. They were giving me an opportunity to confess to what they already believed was true. Several parents have seen messages between you and this boy, my mother said. Messages about meeting for drugs and other things. They're fake. Someone created fake screenshots. I can show you my actual phone. There are no messages like that. My father stood abruptly. Hand over your phone then. I gave it to him willingly, relieved to have concrete proof of my innocence. He scrolled through my messages for several minutes, his frown deepening. There's nothing here to or from Jake Turner, he finally said, but instead of sounding relieved, he seemed more suspicious. You must have deleted them. I didn't delete anything because there was nothing to delete, Dad. Please, you have to believe me. This is all Amanda's doing because she's jealous about the leadership program. My mother was crying openly now. We raised you to be honest, Veronica. Whatever mistakes you've made lying about them only makes it worse. I'm not lying. My voice rose in desperation. Call the school. Talk to Mrs. Wilson about the fundraiser money. Ask my teachers if they've ever seen me acting like I'm on drugs. Talk to Sarah, she knows the truth. Sarah Johnson, the girl from the apartment complex. My father scoffed. Her mother works nights at a bar. Is that the kind of character witness you're offering? His dismissal of Sarah based solely on her family's economic situation stunned me into silence. In that moment, I glimpsed something about my father I had never fully acknowledged, how deeply he judged people based on social standing. The confrontation escalated as my parents revealed they had received an anonymous envelope containing printed copies of the fake text messages and the doctored photos. They refused to believe these could be fabricated, insisting the technology to create such convincing fakes was beyond high school students. We've given you every advantage, my father said, pacing now. The best schools, music lessons, summer camps, family vacations most kids only dream about. And this is how you repay us, by embarrassing us in front of the entire community. I haven't done anything wrong, I repeated, feeling like I was drowning. My mother wiped her tears and steeled herself. We need to search your room, Veronica. Fine, I agreed immediately. Search it. You won't find anything because there's nothing to find. I followed them upstairs, watching as they methodically went through my belongings. My father checked my desk drawers while my mother opened my jewelry box and felt through the pockets of clothes in my closet. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a strange calm replacing my initial panic. Let them search. The truth would vindicate me. Until my father pulled out my old teddy bear Franklin from the shelf above my desk. I had kept him since childhood, though I no longer slept with him. As my father turned the stuffed animal over in his hands, he paused, then felt along the seam on the back. With growing horror, I watched as he located a small opening in the stitching and pulled out a small plastic bag containing white powder. What is this? He demanded, holding it up. I stared at the bag in genuine shock. I have no idea. That's not mine. Someone must have put it there. In your teddy bear, in your bedroom. My mother's voice was shrill. Who would have access to your room, Veronica? My mind raced. Amanda had been to our house for a student council meeting last semester. Several other students had attended a study group in our dining room. The Patterson family had even attended one of my parents' dinner parties over the holidays. There were multiple opportunities for someone to slip upstairs unnoticed. I don't know, but that's not mine, I insisted. Someone is framing me. You have to believe me. But they didn't. The discovery of the planted drugs was in their minds irrefutable evidence. The conversation that followed was one of the most painful of my life. We've always been clear about our values, my father said, his voice cold and final. Honesty and integrity come first in this family. We can help you with whatever problems you're having, but only if you tell the truth. I am telling the truth. My father's expression hardened. Then you leave us no choice. We cannot have this behavior in our home, especially with Thomas watching. You have two options: admit what you've done and accept our help and discipline, or leave until you're ready to be honest." "You're kicking me out." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Your own daughter based on rumors and something obviously planted in my room." "You're 18, Veronica," my mother said softly, as if that justified their decision. "Old enough to make your own choices, and old enough to face the consequences." I looked from one parent to the other, searching for any sign of the unconditional love they had always claimed to have for me. Instead, I saw only disappointment, anger, and an absolute certainty that I was lying to them. "Fine," I said finally, my voice strangely steady, despite the earthquake happening inside me. "I'll leave, but not because I'm guilty, because I won't admit to things I didn't do even to please you." I packed a duffel bag with essentials, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, and school materials. As I worked, Thomas appeared in the doorway, his 12-year-old face confused and frightened. "Are you really leaving?" he asked in a small voice. "Just for a little while," I told him, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Until Mom and Dad understand what's really happening." "I believe you, Ronnie," he whispered, using his childhood nickname for me. "I know you wouldn't do those things." His faith brought tears to my eyes for the first time since the confrontation began. I hugged him quickly, hearing our parents calling him from downstairs. My father waited by the front door as I descended the stairs with my bag. He held out his hand expectantly. "Your house key," he said. I removed it from my keychain and placed it in his palm, the finality of the gesture not lost on either of us. "Don't come back until you're ready to tell the truth," he said as I stepped onto the porch. The door closed firmly behind me, followed by the distinctive sound of the lock engaging. I stood there for a moment, staring at the home I had lived in my entire life, now suddenly off limits to me. The sun was setting on a crisp autumn day. Neighborhood children were playing down the street, and I was homeless. The first night was the hardest. I sat in my car in the Walmart parking lot until well past midnight, alternating between tears and numbness, unable to fully process what had happened. The practical questions eventually broke through my emotional haze. Where would I sleep? How would I shower? What would I eat? How would I continue school? I had about $200 in my checking account, some birthday money I'd been saving for college application fees. My parents controlled my college fund, and I had no doubt they would freeze my access to it. The part-time job I'd held the previous summer at the local library had ended when school began. The reality of my situation was grim. Around 1 in the morning, I finally worked up the courage to call Sarah. Despite the late hour, she answered on the second ring. "Veronica, what's wrong?" My voice broke as I explained what had happened. Without hesitation, she gave me directions to her apartment complex. "Come now. You can sleep on our couch tonight and we'll figure out the rest tomorrow." The Johnson family apartment was small, with Sarah sharing a bedroom with her two younger sisters. Their mother, Karen, worked the night shift as a bartender and wasn't home when I arrived. Sarah made up the couch with sheets and a blanket, then sat with me while I recounted the full confrontation with my parents. They found drugs in my teddy bear Sarah. Someone planted them there to frame me, and my parents believed the worst without even considering any other possibility. Sarah's anger on my behalf was comforting in its fierceness. "This is all Amanda's doing. We need to prove it somehow." The next morning, Karen Johnson returned from her shift to find me asleep on her couch. Sarah had texted her about the situation, but she still seemed startled to see me there. After Sarah explained again, Karen's expression softened. "You can stay through the weekend," she offered. "But I've got 3 kids in this 2-bedroom place already. It's not a long-term solution." I understood completely and was grateful for even temporary shelter. Karen showed me how to use their shower and insisted I eat breakfast with the family before she went to sleep. Over the next few days, I experienced what it meant to be essentially homeless while trying to maintain the appearance of normalcy. I returned to school on Monday, wearing clothes from my hastily packed bag and trying to ignore the continuing whispers. The rumors had evolved now to include my being kicked out, though the versions circulating greatly exaggerated the situation, claiming my parents had discovered a drug operation in my bedroom. The practical challenges mounted quickly. I kept toiletries and a towel in my locker, arriving early to use the gym showers before other students arrived. I rationed my money carefully, buying the cheapest food options I could find. The nights were getting colder, making sleeping in my car an increasingly uncomfortable option when I couldn't impose on the Johnsons. The emotional toll was even greater. Seeing my parents at a school function the following week and having them deliberately turn away from me felt like being stabbed. Watching my mother put her arm around Thomas and guide him in the opposite direction hurt worst of all. Thomas managed to call me a few times from friends' houses, always checking first that our parents wouldn't find out. His voice would drop to a whisper as he gave me updates about home. "Dad took your trophies down from the shelf in the den," he told me during one call. "Mom cried when she was doing laundry and found one of your sweatshirts." "Do they ever talk about me?" I couldn't help asking. "They told me you're going through a difficult time and making bad choices," he said honestly. "But I told them they're wrong about you." "Be careful, Thomas," I warned. "Don't get yourself in trouble on my account." "You're my sister," he said with the straightforward loyalty only a 12-year-old could muster. "They're being unfair." Meanwhile, my academic performance began suffering. How could it not? I was sleep-deprived, inadequately nourished, and constantly anxious. The straight-A student became someone struggling to turn in assignments on time. My debate coach noticed the change and pulled me aside after practice one day. "Whatever's going on, Veronica, you can talk to me about it," she offered. "I've noticed something's wrong." I hesitated, then decided I had nothing to lose. I told her everything: the rumors, my parents' reaction, my current living situation. To my surprise, she believed me without question. "I've known you for 4 years," she said. "This story doesn't match the student I know. Let me see what I can do." The next day, she introduced me to Ms. Fleming, a school counselor I hadn't worked with before. Fleming offered her office as a quiet place to study during my free periods and helped me apply for the school's Emergency Assistance Fund, which provided gift cards for groceries to students in need. Most importantly, she connected me with a weekend job at a local bookstore, giving me a small but crucial income. Still, I was falling behind in classes that had once been easy for me. My college application deadlines were approaching, and without my parents' financial information, my options were severely limited. The leadership program opportunity that had sparked this entire nightmare now seemed like a cruel joke. One particularly difficult night, after spending hours in the public library until closing time and facing another night in my car, I broke down completely. Sitting in the driver's seat, I sobbed until I could barely breathe, releasing weeks of fear, anger, and heartbreak. When the tears finally subsided, something shifted inside me. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror and made a decision. "They won't break me," I told myself. "I won't let this define me." That night marked a turning point. Instead of seeing myself as a victim of circumstance, I began to view this as a challenge to overcome. I created a structured schedule that maximized the resources available to me. The school library became my study hall in the mornings. The public library became my living room in the evenings. The bookstore job provided income and a place to belong on weekends. I reached out to teachers directly explaining my situation and requesting extensions where needed. Most were surprisingly understanding, particularly once Ms. Fleming began quietly advocating on my behalf. I researched scholarships specifically for students with financial hardship and worked on essays during every spare moment. Sarah and her family continued to offer their couch on the coldest nights, and occasionally Karen would send Sarah to school with extra lunch for me. Other small kindnesses emerged from unexpected sources. My chemistry lab partner started bringing additional snacks to share during our long lab periods. The bookstore owner let me take home damaged books that couldn't be sold. Through it all, I maintained my dignity. I never spoke ill of my parents to anyone except Sarah and Ms. Fleming. I never publicly accused Amanda or sought revenge. Instead, I focused on survival and maintaining my academic standing as best I could under the circumstances. What I didn't know then was that the truth was already beginning to emerge slowly but inevitably as the weeks passed. The carefully constructed house of lies that had cost me my home was developing cracks in its foundation, and soon those cracks would cause the entire structure to collapse. 3 months after being kicked out of my home, I was sitting in the bookstore sorting new arrivals when Sarah burst through the door, breathless and excited. "You won't believe what happened," she exclaimed, ignoring the other customers browsing nearby. "Jake and Amanda broke up. Huge fight in the cafeteria, and he's telling everyone the truth about the rumors." According to Sarah, Jake had finally reached his breaking point after months of participating in Amanda's scheme. During their very public argument, he had shouted that he was tired of lying and that Veronica never did anything wrong. When Amanda tried to silence him, he walked away from her and immediately found Sarah confessing everything. "He admitted Amanda made him go along with the fake story," Sarah explained. "She was the one who created those edited photos and fake text messages. She even had copies of your handwriting from student council notes to make the texts seem authentic." This sudden reversal felt surreal. After months of being disbelieved, having someone corroborate my version of events, especially someone central to the rumors, was both validating and bewildering. "Did he say anything about the drugs in my room?" I asked. Sarah nodded. "He said Amanda bragged about planting them during that student council meeting at your house last semester." She slipped upstairs while everyone was setting up in the dining room. Over the next few days, the school's social dynamics shifted dramatically. Jake's confession opened the floodgates for others to question the rumors they had so readily believed. Several students approached me to apologize for their behavior. Teachers who had been cold now showed renewed warmth. The most significant breakthrough came when Mrs. Wilson, the faculty advisor for student council, announced she had conducted a thorough review of the fundraiser finances after hearing about the allegations. Her report to the principal confirmed what I had maintained all along. Every dollar had been properly accounted for, and there was no evidence of theft. 1 week after Jake's cafeteria confession, I was called to Principal Weber's office. I entered warily, having lost my trust in authority figures. To my surprise, Ms. Fleming was already there, sitting beside an empty chair clearly intended for me. "Veronica." Principal Weber began, his expression serious, but notably different from our last interaction. "I owe you an apology on behalf of Westlake High School. We failed to properly investigate serious allegations that were made against you, and as a result, you have suffered unjustly." He explained that after Mrs. Wilson's financial report and Jake Turner's statements, the administration had conducted a more thorough investigation. They had interviewed multiple students and examined the evidence more carefully. The conclusion was clear: I had been the victim of an elaborate campaign to damage my reputation. "We've spoken with Amanda Patterson and her parents," he continued. "She has admitted to creating the false evidence and spreading the rumors. Appropriate disciplinary action is being taken." "What does that mean exactly?" I asked, not willing to accept vague assurances. "Amanda has been suspended for 2 weeks and removed from all leadership positions," he replied. "She will also be required to perform community service and attend counseling sessions." The punishment seemed inadequate considering the havoc she had created in my life, but I recognized the school's disciplinary options were limited. "What about my academic standing?" I asked. "My grades have suffered because of this situation." "Your teachers have been instructed to work with you on making up assignments and tests," Ms. Fleming interjected. "And I've asked them to take your circumstances into account when evaluating your recent work." Principal Weber cleared his throat. "We've also contacted your parents to inform them of our findings." My heart stuttered. "You spoke to my parents?" "Yes. We felt it was important they understand that the allegations against you were proven false." I left the office with mixed emotions. The official exoneration was validating, but it came months too late. The damage to my senior year experience, my grades, and most importantly, my relationship with my family couldn't be easily repaired. News of my vindication spread quickly through school. Sarah organized a small group of friends to create a public show of support, sitting with me at lunch and walking with me between classes. Their renewed friendship was welcome, but I couldn't help noticing how easily they had abandoned me before, and how quickly they returned when it became socially acceptable again. Amanda avoided me completely during her remaining days before suspension, though I occasionally caught her watching me from a distance, her expression unreadable. Jake attempted to apologize, directly approaching me after English class. I should have told the truth from the beginning, he admitted. I let Amanda manipulate me and you paid the price. I'm really sorry, Veronica. I acknowledged his apology without fully accepting it. Why did you finally decide to tell the truth? He looked away. Honestly, I couldn't live with myself anymore. And Amanda was already planning something similar for another girl who rejected me. It had to stop. The most powerful moment of public redemption came during a special assembly about social media responsibility and bullying hastily organized by the administration in response to the incident. Principal Weber asked if I would be willing to speak about my experience. After careful consideration, I agreed, seeing an opportunity to reclaim my narrative. Standing at the podium before the entire student body, including teachers and some parents who had volunteered to attend, I spoke without notes about the devastating impact of rumors and false accusations. I described losing my home, my family's trust, and my sense of security, all because someone decided their social standing was more important than another person's life. The truth eventually comes out, I concluded. But that doesn't automatically repair the damage done. Some trust once broken can never be fully restored. Some experiences change you forever. Before you spread rumors or believe accusations without evidence, remember that you're potentially altering someone's life irreversibly. The applause was thunderous, but more meaningful were the thoughtful expressions on many faces and the conversations I overheard afterward, students discussing times they had participated in gossip without considering consequences. After the assembly, Amanda's father approached me looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. My wife and I want you to know that Amanda will be making a public apology when she returns to school, he said stiffly. We've also spoken with your parents about the situation. Have you? I replied, maintaining eye contact despite his obvious discomfort. And what did they say? They were surprised by the information, he admitted. I believe they're processing it. I nodded politely, but said nothing more. If my parents needed to hear from the Pattersons to believe in my innocence, that spoke volumes about where their priorities lay. Later that week, I received an unexpected visitor at the bookstore. Thomas stood by the register, having apparently convinced someone to drive him there. Mom and Dad know the truth now, he said without preamble. Everyone does. Are you coming home? I led him to the reading nook in the children's section where we could talk privately. It's not that simple, Thomas. But you were right all along. They should just apologize and everything can go back to normal. His 12-year-old logic made the situation seem so straightforward, but we both knew it wasn't. They kicked me out, Thomas. They chose to believe the worst about me instead of trusting me. That hurt in ways that don't heal easily. I told them they were wrong, he said, his chin jutting out defiantly. Every day I told them. I hugged him tightly, grateful for his unwavering support. That means everything to me. But I need to figure out what happens next on my own terms. The truth had finally emerged, but unlike in storybooks, it didn't immediately set everything right. I had been irrevocably changed by this experience. The road to healing would be long, and I wasn't yet sure if my relationship with my parents could be part of that journey. When graduation day finally arrived in late May, I stood in line with my classmates in the school gymnasium, adjusting my cap and gown. 6 months earlier, I had imagined this day very differently, with my proud parents taking photographs and planning a celebration. Instead, I had invited Sarah and her family, Ms. Fleming, and my boss from the bookstore to witness this milestone. The ceremony itself passed in a blur of speeches about future possibilities and reminiscences about shared experiences. I listened with a sense of detachment, aware that my senior year experience had diverged dramatically from most of my peers. When my name was called to receive my diploma, I heard distinct cheering from Sarah's section, their enthusiasm compensating for their small number. As I walked off the stage, clutching the diploma holder that would later contain my official transcript, I glanced toward the audience and froze momentarily. In the middle section, halfway back, sat my parents and Thomas. They hadn't told me they were coming. We hadn't spoken directly since the night they asked me to leave all communication happening through Thomas or third parties. I recovered quickly and returned to my seat, emotions churning beneath my composed exterior. After the ceremony, as students and families mingled on the school lawn, I thanked my invited guests and accepted their congratulations. I was discussing my scholarship to State University with Ms. Fleming when I felt a presence behind me. Veronica. I turned to face my mother, who stood awkwardly with my father slightly behind her. Thomas hovered at their side, his expression hopeful. Congratulations, my father said stiffly. Thank you for coming, I replied, equally formal. An uncomfortable silence followed, broken when my mother stepped forward and handed me a small gift bag. We're very proud of what you've accomplished, especially under such difficult circumstances. I accepted the bag without opening it. I should get back to my friends. They're taking me to lunch to celebrate. Actually, my father interjected, we hoped you might join us for lunch. As a family. The word family struck me as almost ironic. I've already made plans, but thank you for the offer. Veronica. My mother's voice cracked slightly. We'd like to talk to you. About everything that happened. About coming home. I looked at their expectant faces, at Thomas's hopeful expression, and felt a complex mix of longing and apprehension. Part of me wanted to accept their invitation to slip back into the comfort of family and home. But another part recognized that return without resolution would be a mistake. I can't today, I said finally. But maybe we could meet tomorrow, somewhere neutral like the coffee shop downtown. They agreed, and the next day I found myself sitting across from my parents at a small table, paper cups of coffee, creating a minimal barrier between us. Thomas had been left at home, giving us space for an adult conversation. My father began with what I'm sure he considered a magnanimous opening. We've learned about the situation at school about this Amanda girl and her campaign against you. We understand now that you were telling the truth. Yes, I was. I confirmed, meeting his gaze directly. I told you that from the beginning. You have to understand our position, he continued, shifting uncomfortably. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Multiple sources were confirming the same story, and finding those drugs in your room, which were planted there to frame me exactly as I said. My mother reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. We made a terrible mistake, Veronica. We're your parents, and we should have believed you. We're asking for your forgiveness and for you to come home. I had rehearsed this conversation in my mind countless times over the past months, imagining what I would say when they finally acknowledged their error. Now that the moment had arrived, I found myself speaking from the heart rather than from my mental script. Do you know where I've been living these past 6 months? I asked quietly. They exchanged uncomfortable glances. My father cleared his throat. We heard you were staying with friends. I've been homeless, I stated plainly. Some nights on Sarah Johnson's couch, some nights in my car, some nights in a youth shelter when the temperature dropped below freezing. I've been working weekends at Cornerstone Books, using the school shower before classes and eating whatever I could afford with my minimum wage paycheck. Their expressions reflected genuine shock. They truly hadn't considered the practical realities of kicking their teenage daughter out of their home. Why didn't you tell us? My mother whispered. We would have helped. How exactly? By letting me back home only if I admitted to things I didn't do. That was the condition you set. My father's face flushed. We were wrong about that. Clearly wrong. Yes, you were, I agreed. But what hurts most isn't that you believed the rumors initially. It's that you didn't believe me, your daughter. The person you raised and claimed to know and love. You chose the word of strangers over mine. The conversation continued for nearly 2 hours, covering painful ground as we excavated the events of the past months. I learned that they had indeed frozen my college fund temporarily, but had maintained it intact. They had told extended family I was going through a phase, rather than admitting to the rift between us. My room had remained untouched exactly as I had left it. As we prepared to leave, my father asked directly, "Will you come home, Veronica?" I had given this question extensive thought. I will, but on my terms. I need some things to be different. Anything, my mother said quickly. I need acknowledgement that what happened was wrong, not just incorrect, but morally wrong. I need apologies to Sarah and her family who helped me when you wouldn't. and I need therapy both individually and as a family because there's clearly a trust issue we need to address. My father looked like he might argue about the therapy requirement, but ultimately nodded. Those are reasonable requests. The process of returning home and rebuilding our relationship was neither quick nor easy. The first night back in my bedroom felt strangely disorienting, like visiting a museum exhibition of my former life. Thomas was the only one who seemed able to act normally around me, chattering about his summer plans and school events I had missed. My parents attempted to enforce their previous rules and curfews, which led to our first significant conflict since my return. I had to remind them that I had been living independently, managing my own schedule, and making adult decisions for months. Eventually, we negotiated a new arrangement that acknowledged my demonstrated maturity while respecting their home. As promised, we began family therapy sessions, which were often uncomfortable but necessary. Our therapist, Dr. Marshall, facilitated difficult conversations about trust communication and the conditional nature of my parents' previous support. My father particularly struggled with these sessions, finding it difficult to acknowledge how his fixation on appearances and reputation had contributed to our family crisis. During one breakthrough session, my mother tearfully admitted, "I think we were so focused on raising a perfect child that we forgot to just love the child we had." Summer transitioned into fall, and I began my freshman year at State University living in the dorms rather than commuting from home as originally planned. The scholarship I had secured, combined with my restored college fund, provided financial security, but I maintained my weekend job at the bookstore, valuing the independence it represented. Thomas and I developed a closer relationship than we'd had before his unwavering support during my exile, creating a bond that transcended our age difference. He began coming to the bookstore on Saturdays, helping me shelve returns and reading in the corner during my shifts. My father struggled the longest with genuine reconciliation. His pride made it difficult for him to fully acknowledge the magnitude of his failure as a parent. It took a private conversation almost a year after my return home for him to finally express the depth of his regret. "I've built my career on evaluating evidence and making judgments," he told me during a rare moment of vulnerability. "I thought I was applying those same skills to the situation with you, but I realize now that I was actually just protecting my own image, my fear of what others might think. I failed you fundamentally, and I don't know if I can ever make that right." "You can't change what happened," I replied honestly. "Neither of us can. But we can build something different moving forward, something based on actual trust rather than appearances." Our relationship slowly evolved into something more authentic, if less idealized than what we had before. The perfect family facade was permanently fractured, but in its place emerged a more honest connection. My parents began to see me as an individual with my own judgments and values, rather than merely an extension of themselves and their reputation. The experience profoundly shaped my academic and career path. I changed my major from business to psychology with a focus on adolescent development. My work with Dr. Marshall had shown me the power of therapeutic intervention during crisis, and I wanted to provide that support to others. During my sophomore year of college, I started volunteering with a youth outreach program for teens experiencing family conflict or homelessness. The director, impressed by both my academic background and personal experience, eventually offered me a paid position coordinating their peer support groups. This led to the development of a program specifically designed to help families navigate trust breaches and reconciliation, something I presented at a regional conference during my senior year. The program incorporated elements of what had helped my own family heal: clear communication protocols, defined boundaries, and structured opportunities for rebuilding trust. My relationship with my parents today is respectful and generally warm, though forever marked by what we experienced. We gather for holidays and celebrate milestones together. They support my work and express pride in my accomplishments. Thomas, now in college himself, often serves as the bridge between us when tensions occasionally resurface. However, there remains an invisible line in our relationship, a caution that wasn't there before. I measure my words more carefully around them. They hesitate before offering opinions on my choices. The unconditional trust that children naturally place in their parents was permanently altered for me. replaced by a more conditional earned trust that requires ongoing maintenance. This experience taught me that family bonds, often presented as unbreakable and automatic, are actually quite fragile and require continuous nurturing. I learned that people's true priorities reveal themselves during crisis, and that reputation and appearances often mask deeper insecurities. Most importantly, I discovered my own resilience and capacity for forgiveness, not as an instant healing, but as a gradual, intentional process. Sometimes the family you build from the ashes of betrayal becomes stronger than the one you were born into, not because the original bonds are fully restored, but because the new connections are forged with complete awareness of both human frailty and human capacity for growth. My story isn't about perfect healing, but about meaningful recovery with scars that remind rather than restrict. Have you ever had to rebuild trust with someone who deeply disappointed you? Share your experience in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and like this video so others going through similar situations can find it. Remember that healing isn't always about returning to what was, but creating something new that honors both your pain and your resilience. Thank you for listening to my journey, and I hope it brings some comfort or guidance to yours.